Welcome to the Open Apple podcast, where we celebrate the Apple II. Whether you're a long-time user, a nostalgic visitor, or a newcomer to the community, join us as we share news and memories of Steve Wozniak's most famous personal computer.
Hello and welcome to Open Apple. This is episode 72 for June 2017. I am your co-host, the first, Coin Donkey. With me as always is co-host, the second, Mike McGinnis. How you doing, Mike?
Gwen, that's such a great intro. I think I'm going to steal it and use it on other podcasts.
I think you've already done that, haven't you?
Oh, no.
You stole pieces of it for Drop 3 Inches anyway.
What? No, not me. How are you, Gwen?
I'm good. That would be Drop 3 Inches, the Apple III podcast.
Hey, I didn't even have to mention it.
That's right. There you see, we got it away. We got it out of the way in like 11 seconds. So now you don't have to worry about it.
Well, maybe. So it's the big countdown is on for KansasFest.
It is, yeah. In fact, this show, maybe it'll go out before KFest, but let's be honest, probably not. Maybe it'll go out during KFest if Mike gets bored late one night and wants to edit.
Well, we'll try to push it out so that everybody has something to listen to on the way, and then they can complain about it when they get there.
Yes, for sure. Yes, they can complain about all the stuff we got wrong in person. It's a rare treat.
That's right. Just knock on our doors, and we'll be there.
Yeah. So have you been doing any retro computing since we talked last?
It's been kind of slow for me in that area this summer just because I've got I started a new job in a new career field recently, and I've been getting used to that. I'm really, really loving it, but, I have no base of knowledge from which to work, so it's all new and exciting, and yeah, I haven't had a lot of time. What about you?
Very cool. Well, yeah, I've been busy on my Apple IIc. Well, technically on my emulator, but I like to pretend it's an Apple IIc.
Sure.
Working on my KansasFest project. As usual, I think I will be finishing it on the plane. But it's very, very nearing completion, so hopefully I'll be able to show something pretty nifty.
Great. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of KansasFest, as is tradition here on the show, we like to talk to one of the committee members right before the big event. And this month we've got Peter Neubauer with us. Say hello, Peter.
Hello. It's good to talk to you. I look forward to seeing you in 19 days at KansasFest.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Peter, welcome back to the show. We had you on way early in our run, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I've enjoyed listening to you. It's a lot lower pressure when I can listen and don't have to talk.
So let's see. Well, since it's been a while since you've been on the show, Peter, why don't we start with some of the basics for people who may not know you. What was your introduction to the Apple II?
My introduction to the Apple II was in third grade. My third grade teacher used an Apple IIe and Apple logo in the classroom, and that sparked my passion and interest in computers. Eventually it turned into a career. Many years later, I found myself within driving distance of KansasFest, and that rekindled my interest in the Apple II, and I've been going ever since.
Cool. So when was that first KFest?
It was the year that Jason Scott was the keynote speaker. I think 5 years ago now. Actually, I have a handy spreadsheet here. I can look that up for you. That would have been 2009.
Okay, so going back a little ways. So what was the first Apple II that you acquired or owned or had regular access to?
For a very long time, it was an Apple IIe at school. Eventually, I got an Apple IIc Plus. That was an incredible day, and I spent a lot of time with it, Apple IIc Plus. And I have to admit that the Apple IIc Plus beep sounds correct to me after spending so much time with it.
Blasphemy. Wow, okay.
You're off the show.
Yeah. Wow, so I don't suppose I can interest you in my ROM then that corrects the beeps.
I have one. It's very nice work.
Oh, good. Well,
He's trying to collect them all and destroy them.
Yeah, that's right.
You foiled my plan.
Secretly working against us. Yeah. Wow, so that's actually really interesting. I don't think there's probably too many people out there for whom their first Apple II was the IIc Plus, so that's kind of a neat data point.
Yeah, that is strange, and it does warp my perspective on the Apple IIe, or other Apple IIs in general. I can't figure out why the disks don't hold 800K and why everything runs so slow. But I finally did figure out why I was so terrible at games.
That's good. Yeah, it wasn't me all along. That's refreshing.
They're running so fast, I don't get it.
I could never figure out how someone could ever succeed or get past the first level in these games going so fast.
So how did you transition then from KFest attendee to KFest co-organizer?
After I've been going, I think 2 years, there is a need for someone to help with public relations, updating the website, doing artwork for t-shirts and things like that. So I joined to support that, and over time my role has evolved.
From what to what?
For the last several years, I haven't done t-shirt designs. I've spent more time on some of the more mundane tasks, processing registrations, taking checks down to the bank, ordering t-shirts and things like that. But just shifting roles, and I'm sure that'll shift again with time. I certainly enjoyed creating artwork for several of the t-shirts several years ago. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, you created the artwork that we use for our icon here at Open Apple. And thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think that my background with the Apple II can bring a different perspective than a graphic designer without that background.
So the convention has been growing like crazy these past few years, and it's really outstanding to see what kind of challenges has this presented for the committee behind the scenes.
Yeah, last year we had 80 people. This year we have, at the moment, 99 people registered and space for one more. There's been a few cancellations, so probably by the time folks hear this, that spot will be filled. It's been difficult fitting everybody into the buildings, into the conference spaces. We have limits from the facilities, but it's changing how we organize things, reducing the number of tables in the presentation room, for example. We're trying to encourage double occupancy so that we can fit more people in the building on lower floors. And we're also adding a newcomers orientation this year. I think we have one of those scheduled Tuesday, possibly even one Monday if there's enough people there. And that'll help folks who are coming to KansasFest for the first time figure out what's going on, where the different buildings are, what it means to leave your door open at night, how to wander around, and see the incredible projects that everyone's working on. One thing I've found over the years is that the presentations are only a small piece of KansasFest. And
yeah, that's true.
Everybody else there has incredible ideas, experiences, projects that they're working on. And maybe they didn't decide to get up and present it, but it's well worth the time and effort to wander the halls, look for the open doors, and talk to people, point out the cool stuff that they have.
Yeah, that's a really great idea because, KFest really is unique in that way. It's not like a typical hotel conference type thing where you're in your room and then you're sitting in a conference room all day listening to speakers. It's a very different sort of format, and I think a lot of people may not understand exactly how it works. Yeah,
so I think getting folks familiar with how KansasFest works is the biggest challenge, and there'll be some more challenges with just having more people, more potential for problems, but in general, I don't think that'll be an issue.
So is this the highest number of new people, like first-time attendees this year?
No, I don't have the number of first-time attendees. It is the largest number of attendees we've had overall at KansasFest since at least 1994, maybe 1992.
Wow.
There's a gap in my data.
Ooh.
Wow, so possibly the largest since the Apple II was still being produced.
I know, it's amazing.
That is amazing.
Despite the 100-person limit that we have on the facilities, we haven't actually turned anyone away. There's been a few cancellations, a few people on the wait list, a few people who have filled the spots. So I'm happy that I don't have to say no to anybody.
Oh, good.
I remember a lot of the attendees that are showing up, quote unquote, are these seditious Atari and Commodore bastards. So we got to force them out and get more Apple II people in there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm not quite sure how to do that. There might be a room we could lock them in the basement, but
there you go.
An Atari closet.
I hear there's a giant podcasting session, I think Friday, so maybe we could recruit those podcasters to help.
Yes. Although we should make some exceptions because Rob McMullen, an Atari devotee, has been helping me with one of my projects, actually, including the one that I'm going to be showing at KFest. And I think Kevin Savitz gets a pass because Kevin Savitz. So I guess once you open that door, then we got to make allowances for all of them.
Yeah, that's true. Kevin did win Hackfest last year. I think he wrote his first assembly language program ever, and it was incredible, and it won Hackfest.
Yeah. Yeah, if that's not the spirit of KFest, I don't know what is. New hardware, new language, new everything, and he won, so good on him.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, of course, that presentations are just like a small portion of it, but they are something that everybody, I think, enjoys attending, and I know that each year feels different, so all of the presentations are different. And why don't we start with the keynote? Brutal Deluxe is going to be there this year. How did that come together?
Yeah, the entire Brutal Deluxe team, Antoine and Olivier, will be giving the keynote, and as background for folks who are unfamiliar with them, they've done an incredible amount of work with preservation on the Apple II, software development, particularly on the Apple IIgs. You need to go visit their website. I think it's... Actually, I'm not going to say their website because I'll probably get it wrong, but it's listed on the KansasFest website, and you should take a look at the Brutal Deluxe website. There's an incredible number of software products out there, original software, and I look forward to talking to them. And this came about sort of by accident. We heard that Antoine was thinking of visiting on his own, reached out to him, offered him to be the keynote, and he responded and said that, well, both he and Olivier were interested. So it's a rare opportunity to get the entire team together, and they're going to be there for the entire week. So I'm sure we'll learn a lot from them.
And they're flying over from France, right?
Yeah, they're making a long journey from France.
What else? Can you give us any previews or anything like that of what we might be seeing as far as sessions? I know that's not something that's usually announced, but
yeah, the session schedule is packed. We actually accidentally accepted a few too many sessions, but I think it's working out. Yeah, it's also very difficult to deny any of these sessions just because all of them sound so interesting. A couple that we have on the books for this year include an Apple II Family Feud. Kevin Savitz is leading that. And he's promised that, to quote from his session description, hilarity will ensue. So I'm not sure what that means. The Hogans are back with their GamePort I/O, but this time they're using the GamePort to control 120 volts. So any session with the possibility for serious injury or death is going to be more exciting. And their presentations are always excellent, and they do excellent work. There's a session on compiling sprites from somebody named Quinn. A little uncertain about that one, but
yeah,
we'll see.
She's a hack. Don't bother going.
You should bump that immediately.
Well, I'm not doing the session schedule, so.
Oh, okay.
David Schmenk is going to talk about NTSC color artifacts. He's promised he has some new information. His session description calls it a next generation, so I look forward to seeing what he has. Evan Koblentz from the VCF is going to be attending for the first time. He's going to give a session on Lego programming. We also have various sessions on game programming. Mark Lemmert, the author of Nox Archaeus, is going to be talking about how he developed his software. We have sessions on handmade floppy disk sleeves, podcasting, text adventures, AppleSoft Basic. Randy Brandt is going to be speaking about Beagle Bros and AppleWorks. The list goes on. I think we have a pretty good selection of both technical sessions as well as, I'll call them more lighthearted but nonetheless useful sessions.
Now, it's been quite a while, but as I recall, some of those early Kansas Fests, we actually had to have like multiple tracks of sessions going throughout the week. Is that something you guys have considered?
We've considered it, especially as we get more people attending Kansas Fest, but we're not doing it this year. I welcome feedback about that.
Yeah, personally, I'm a fan of the single track because honestly, like other big conferences, GDC and so on, it always kind of annoys me that I can never quite manage to go to everything I want. So I'm one of those people that just camps out in the back of this session room all day, every day, because I just love all the sessions.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm interested in all aspects of the Apple II, and I don't know that I could choose if I had to.
One of the big things about KansasFest has always been the nightlife and staying up, 5, 6, 7 days in a row. And of course, as we get older and grayer, those hours tend to shrink a little bit. But it's still a big thing. Peter, are you one of these night owls that stays up late and does the stuff that no one talks about?
I do tend to stay up far too late, though I don't consider myself a night owl. This year, I think we've done a pretty good job not packing the evenings with sessions. We have a solder fest and a mini hack fest and a couple of workshops and game tournaments in the evening. But we've done a pretty good job of keeping the sessions during the daytime hours so that the nighttime hours are available for crazy things or sleeping, whichever you prefer.
Late night runs to Steak and Shake.
Yeah. Have you ever done that?
I have, yes.
Oh, I keep meaning to do that one. That's been on my list, but I never seem to know when it's going to happen, and then I guess I'm asleep when it happens, so I seem to miss it every year.
Yeah, it is sort of a balancing act because you get back from that thing at 3:30 or 4 in the morning, and then you're completely wiped out for a good portion of the next day, and so yeah, you got to decide what your priorities are. Do you go to Comic-Con and just sit in line for Hall H the whole time, or do you go and visit some of these more obscure sessions?
Yeah, it is tough. There's so much to do.
KansasFest has a really rich history just just because it's been around for so long. Is there anyone planning to talk about like the history of KansasFest or anything like that?
No, we don't have that. Nobody proposed that. But that would be an interesting topic. There's so much of the history that I don't know. I would be fascinated.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody needs to get on that right now.
Yeah, I could see it maybe as a piece of the intro before the keynote. There's always a little bit of a blurb about, who K-Fest is and that sort of thing. Yeah,
there'll be a bit of a blurb there, but I think the deeper history requires more time.
Quinn, what are you most looking forward to?
Oh boy, well, right now finishing my project, but I guess I think every year I try to do some new piece of it that I haven't done before, because every year, there's so much to do. You can't do all of it. So I try to just do new things. I'm hoping maybe this is the year that I make it to Steak and Shake. But of course, I love the sessions. But, also I love all of the, off the book stuff as well. I think some people are planning to bring some board games this year. There's a lot of hardcore board gamers amongst us, and so I'm looking forward to that. I know it's a cop-out to say the people, but sorry, Carrington, but it is really a lot of it is just seeing the people again and trudging through a living hot tub to the cafeteria for the food every day. But and it's going to be interesting to see just what it's like with that many people. It's been getting bigger every year since I started going, but this is a full 30% larger, I think, than the last year. So that's a lot of people. Yeah. Things like the garage giveaway, are interesting in that context of having that many more people swarming. And in fact, I believe Sean said that Sean Fahey is going to be bringing even more stuff than ever in honor of the large turnout. So we should expect a very, very large garage giveaway this year. And I think he's also said that, they're getting pretty deep into the inventory at this point. So some of the really interesting stuff is going to start coming out. They've gotten rid of all of the, yellow 2Es with broken keys. So they're starting to get into the more exotic and interesting stuff now.
Going to be fist fights over zip chips and things like that.
I think he's hanging on to those, but there should be some gems in there. There was some gems even last year, even some non-Apple stuff. There was a Franklin Ace 500, which was a very cool machine that someone grabbed. There was a Coco 3, which I know is a pretty special machine, even though I didn't have a lot of interest myself. A lot of bizarre and interesting things.
Peter, do you, as somebody on the committee, do you have time to enjoy a lot of this stuff, or are you just running around organizing and things?
I force myself to make time, and the reason why I'm on the KansasFest committee is because I enjoy going to KansasFest. I want to keep seeing KansasFest every year, year after year. I want to make KansasFest a bit better, but for all it to be worthwhile, I need to be there and enjoy it myself. So it's difficult, definitely, but at least last year, at least for the last couple of years, I've managed to enjoy KansasFest myself, gone to most of the sessions, enjoyed the garage giveaway, enjoyed a lot of the after hours things as well.
Great. So then what are you most looking forward to?
I most look forward to being with other folks who care about the Apple II and talk about the Apple II for a little less than a week. At no other time in my life do I get to spend time with folks who want to talk about the Apple II.
Ugh, the people. Wow. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
I know, I mentioned the Apple II, and people say, oh, yeah, I remember that. Next topic.
So, Mike, let me flip the script on you then. It's been, what, 2 years since you were able to attend? So,
That's right, yes.
What are you looking forward to?
I will probably look forward to what I always do, and that's wandering from room to room, the open doors, and seeing what people are doing, because often a lot of the interesting innovations and ideas for, upcoming Apple II hardware and software are either thought up or tested at KansasFest. You get a lot of these really bright, creative people together, and great stuff happens.
For sure, yeah.
And a lot of times those partnerships persist after KansasFest.
So, Peter, getting back to kind of your personal involvement with the Apple II, now I know you're a big fan of Logo. Will there be any Logo-related content this year?
I will be giving a short presentation on Logo, looking at how to bring Logo to modern platforms in the iPad and some of the adaptations that we can make to change how the user interface works in Logo that was adapted to the Apple II, a text-based user interface. And I'm also interested in Evan's Lego programming. I don't know if he's using Logo. However, Logo did work with the Lego robotics, what do they call them? I think they call them Lego robotics, the Lego robotics line, and you could control various robots with Logo.
Very cool. Yeah, that would be the first generation of Lego stuff long before Mindstorms.
Yeah, it was the precursor to that.
So you'd mentioned a session or two at the outset for newcomers once they get there, but do you have any advice for people do you have any advice for new people before they show up, if they happen to be listening to this podcast? Maybe what they should bring, or what what they might look forward to.
I would warn people that Kansas City in the middle of the summer is hot, so dress appropriately. Fortunately, most everything is indoors. And then I would encourage people to come with an open mind, both from the perspective that there's a lot of people with a lot of different projects, and even if you tend to be introverted, wander the halls, look at what people are doing, ask questions, even if it's just, hey, that's cool, can you show me more? Simple question, but it can often lead to learning a lot.
Yeah, and I'll echo that open mind sentiment with the people. Again, people come from all over the world to attend this thing, and so there's a really great cross section of humanity, so to speak, at this thing every year. So I think you're definitely going to meet people that you might not otherwise encounter, and wherever your daily life takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. Both from the perspective of interest in the Apple II, interests span from very technical to folks who enjoy using the computer as an end user, and also from individual backgrounds, perspectives, and beliefs. So if you find someone who you strongly disagree with, then try to set that aside for a week and focus on the Apple II.
Yeah, we're there to talk about the Apple II. Nothing else needs to be on the table necessarily.
I'm pointing out that the Apple II is the one thing that brings us all together.
That's right. Yeah. And I guess people should probably also be aware of the beds. If you haven't signed up for the linens, to make sure you bring your own, that sort of thing. There's a great packing list on the KansasFest website, which we'll link to in the show notes.
Definitely. We'll have a welcome email and an updated welcome webpage that'll come out in probably a week or two. And there are always outings to local stores. If you need something, forget something, choose not to pack something because you want to fit your Apple II instead.
Yeah, I think I've gone to Walmart and bought flip-flops every year because every year I forget to bring the flip-flops that I brought last year.
That's a good point. I'd forgotten that myself.
Shower flip-flops, very important.
Now, is there a place where people can go and sign up for possible KansasFest discussions, perhaps on a list that is served somewhere?
That's a very leading question. Yes, we have email discussion lists.
What? What do you mean?
If you head over to our website, kansasfest.org, over on the left-hand side, there's a section called News, and you'll see discussion lists. You can sign up for an email list. That's probably the best way to get news about KansasFest, just informal discussions preceding and during KansasFest. We also have a Facebook event if you prefer that. We have a Twitter account if you'd like to follow that. I also encourage folks to tweet their experiences and thoughts. We also have a Slack chat. So I think there's a lot of ways to stay in touch with folks. If you're interested in seeing things that have happened at past KansasFest, we have a YouTube channel, and Mr. Jason Scott has put up a lot of recordings from past sessions on the Internet Archive. And again, all these links are on our website, either under News or the lower left corner of our website. You see several icons.
I, for one, am super excited, and I cannot wait to get there.
Agreed.
Forward to seeing you soon.
Well, thank you, Peter. We appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and enthusiasm.
Hi, this is Steve Wozniak, and you're listening to Open Apple.
All right. Well, thanks again, Peter. That was awesome. Now let's roll into some news, Mike.
It may be old, but there's still news. Apple II news.
All right, this first one comes to us from a listener, and the news here is that the book High-Res Graphics and Animation Using Assembly Language was scanned by Apple II fan Francois Michaud. I hope I didn't butcher your name, Francois. And this is a gem of a book that, as far as I know, was not previously available. It's kind of along the lines of Michael Packard's favorite book that we had on the show last month, Arcade Game Design in Apple Graphics and Assembly Language, something like that. Anyway, I flipped through this book, and it's a solid scan, and it looks like a really great resource.
Awesome. Now, is that I noticed that this is on a French website. Is it in English?
It is actually an English book, yeah. And the link that we'll have in the show notes is, I think, to the top level of all of their scans, but it's in there. There is some French stuff in there as well, but a number of other Apple II books there. But yeah, the book itself is in English. It follows a similar format to that other book. It starts off with, explaining the high-res graphics page and how to draw simple shapes, and then getting into more complex things, moving things vertically, moving things horizontally, and then it culminates in an arcade game. So I think between the two books, you could probably get a really good understanding of how to animate things in high-res.
There's, the usual Apple II screen black magic and animal sacrifice and voodoo going on in the background, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, very important. All right, next item we've got is from friends of the show 6502 Workshop, who will be at KansasFest giving a presentation on Nox Archaist. And we expect some big news there. Hopefully, maybe it'll even be dueling game launch presentations between them and the Lawless Legends team. We'll see.
I told you, dance battle.
That's coming. Right, dance battle, yes. My money is on Martin Hay. The news here is that hacker community cracker archivist, friend of the community, Cucumba, is joining the 6502 Workshop team as a developer. So he will be doing their bootloader and their copy protection, that kind of thing, miscellaneous other stuff. And also industry veteran Beth Daggert will be joining as a project advisor. So the 6502 Workshop team is now up to 8.
Where are they going to fit them all?
Yeah, that's impressive. That's larger than most of the teams at the company I work with currently doing mobile applications. So the fact that there's 8 people doing an Apple II game in 2017 is pretty fantastic.
It's pretty intense, yep.
Yeah. And speaking of Nox Archaist, they have a new one of their now classic vignettes. This one's called Dungeons of Drathnor, and I believe it is showcasing their new dungeon engine.
Yeah, I'm really looking. I've really gotten hooked on these things. I look forward to seeing these new vignettes and what they're doing, and it's definitely been a great tool for them to maintain interest because game development takes time, and you want people to be excited when it finally gets here.
Yeah, and the production values on these vignettes is actually quite good. They're fun to watch.
Indeed.
There's a real charm to them because, there's nice production values and good music and everything, but then it's also Apple II graphics happening. So there's definitely a charm to it. All right, so here's an interesting one that came across my RSS feed. So a gentleman by the name of Wade Clark, who was the author of a game called Questor 2 in 1989, and he decided to revisit the game and blog his experience of going back and playing it as a user. So, there's been enough time that I guess he's basically forgotten everything about the game. So he went back and played his own game as a player 25 years later. And, just talks about his experiences. So it's a pretty interesting read.
Yeah, Wade Clark, he's been developing Apple II software for quite some time, of course, like you said. Maybe not most recently, but in the recent past, he wrote Lead Light, I think that's how you pronounce that, the award-winning interactive fiction game for the Apple II. It's a horror game that was featured on the cover of Juice.js a while back, and he's done quite a bit for the community. So it's great to see that he's still involved, and it's always fun to see the original authors dig stuff up from the past and just kind of get nostalgic and really go through the ins and outs of their products.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to see the OG developers still poking around with the hardware all this time later.
Right, exactly.
It's funny, sometimes we interview those developers here on the show and we ask them if they still do any Apple II stuff, and sometimes the answer is, what? No. Why would I do that?
That's right.
It was 30 years ago.
That's right. They look at us like we have forgotten to take our medicine or something.
Yeah. So speaking of developers that are still at it, French demo and game legends NinjaForce created a new demo in 2017, which is pretty awesome. And this demo was shown at a big demo scene show called Revision 2017. So we will link in the show notes to a video of this. It's a YouTube link. It's a YouTube deep link into the middle of the live stream of this event. It's a really big event, and it covers, all platforms, all hardware, everything. From, crazy modern PC stuff to Atari 8-bit to, all sorts of things. And this year, which is pretty unusual, there was a 2GS demo in there, which is really nice to see. So, so it's the quality of this video isn't great because it is a link to the middle of a live YouTube stream, but it is kind of amusing. There's commentary. I think it's in Germany, I want to say. But there's subtitles and so on for the commentary. It's kind of a fun watch. And I imagine there is video of just the demo by itself here somewhere, which I will try and dig up a link for in the show notes, if not even just a disk image, so you can run it in an emulator.
Oh, that seems like fun. I hadn't heard about this, so I will be checking that out as soon as we hang up here.
Yeah, how often do you find a new 2GS demo in this day and age?
Right.
Okay, so let's see. Next up, so last month we read a user boy, this new tongue is just not working out. You get what you pay for.
That's right. Time to send it in for warranty repair.
Yeah, well, it was Amazon Prime, and I'm like, I can't afford not to buy this. And then, I should have known.
That's what you get.
Yep. So anyway, last month we got an email from a listener who wondered if there was any kind of graphics libraries or references for programming low-res graphics in assembly language. And we had sort of stumbled around and vaguely suggested maybe they learn to use the text screen because low-res is kind of the same thing and maybe go from there. Well, listener Tom Porter to the rescue. He has actual help for this other user. So Tom has been doing a lot of low-res stuff and double low-res stuff lately, as well as audio stuff. We've talked about him recently a lot. And so he has actually a low-res graphics library. So you can look at the code and learn how things are done, and also just use it to do your own stuff. So we will link to that in the show notes, and that's a really, really nice thing. And thanks to Tom for sharing that with everybody.
Yeah, that's very generous of you, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, we do love open source here on Open Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So the call APPL, call APPLE. That's what I get for trying to say it all fancy. I should just say call Apple like everybody else. But that would be a trademark, and that's technically not the official name. It's call APPLE. The Call Apple folks have been busy again. They have a new book out on the history of synergistic software. So we will link to all of that stuff in the show notes. And also a book including, looks like you added this after the fact, Mike, some memoirs.
Yeah, hang on. I'm just making notes for next month. The apologies we're going to have to issue for all of this.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so the first book is the synergistic software like itself. It's the documentation for the games, and I think there's some write-ups and artwork and things, and it looks really great. The other book that they released is Robert Clardy was the CEO of Synergistic Software, and he sat down and wrote up his memoirs of his days developing and running that company. And they've also released that. It's called Cyberjack. So check out both of those books.
Awesome. Wow. Call Apple people still getting it done.
Yeah, it's crazy how much they're putting out over there.
Yeah, they publish a lot of new material and republish a lot of old material. So if you're looking for an old Apple II book, it's a good place to go look first because they may in fact own that copyright and be still producing it.
Yep, we love it.
All right, so we've talked a lot lately about the 8BitDo Apple II themed game controller, and
fail.
Yes, it's been a mixed success. Let's say it's certainly gotten better lately with some of their firmware updates.
Yep.
But one, of course, the possibly killer feature of it is the GamePort Bluetooth dongle for Apple II that was an option with it, and I think I had bemused at some point recently on the show here that I was going to get one of those dongles and play with it on its own just to see if it could be used for general Bluetooth stuff on the Apple II. And intrepid hacker Alex Lucchesi beat me to it, as he often does. And so he's been doing just that, playing with just the Bluetooth dongle part of that thing and seeing how it works and what it can do. So we will link to a great blog post that he has on that subject. And speaking of other people that are blogging better than me, this is a blog I hadn't actually heard of. It's called Battle Stations, and I think it's a general tech blog or hobby blog of a particular person out there. But I don't think it generally covers Apple II content, at least not that I've been able to tell. But for whatever reason, he has done a series of posts. I think there's 8 parts on Apple II double high res, which is a very cool and exotic topic. Many of us are very interested in it, including myself. And it's really the only graphics mode that puts the Apple II anywhere close to some of our competitors graphics-wise. Full high-res resolution with 16 colors on any pixel. It's pretty great. But it's obscenely complicated to program for. It's utterly maddening. But if you can master it, it's really quite powerful because it has there's 2 full pages. You can do page flipping animation and, like I say, 16 colors per pixel, and it's direct color, just 4 bits, per pixel, and there's no weird palette bits or bit shifting color artifacts. None of that stuff. It's the graphics mode that you wish you'd had in 1977. But anyway, point of all that, it's very complicated to program for. And this fantastic series of blog posts just walks you through it from nothing all the way to animating some sprites in double high res. So if you are interested in cracking that underappreciated and underused graphics mode, this I think is a great place to start.
I particularly love this blog because the background image looks like it's from one of the Ultimate games, and it's kind of that fragmented landscape that you get when you went in with a sector editor and you mess something up, and it wasn't enough to crash the program to keep it from loading up. But suddenly you're either standing in the middle of a lake and you can't move, or there's random mountain fragments in the middle of the forest. So that stuff, I love that. the glitch art, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And the domain name of his blog is Canadian, so maybe he's a fellow Canadian. Shout out.
Even better.
Yeah. It's a really good read, that one. All right. Well, speaking of crazy graphical stunts on this old hardware, this one I'm sure everybody has seen because this thing went super wide. This was all over mainstream press. This got posted and reposted and emailed and all over the place. But we're going to talk about it because it would be just obscene not to talk about this. It's so amazing. So this fellow has created a rendering of the Last Jedi movie trailer on an Apple IIc. And I assumed this was some sort of cheesy stunt, maybe involving just some Photoshop filters, not running on real hardware, or perhaps some sort of, video playback kind of thing, video streaming, which we've seen done on the Apple II, something like that. Or something. Yeah, but no, oh no. This guy did it the hard way. So the more I read about this, I went into this fully skeptical, thinking, oh, this is just going to be dumb, not as cool as everyone says it is. It was so much cooler than I possibly could have imagined. So this guy actually rephrase that, he hand drew the entire trailer in DazzleDraw, basically frame by frame. And there's a making of article that we'll link to that you have to read as well, because it shows pictures of how he did this. He's got, the trailer playing on his modern Mac with acetate sheets, and he's drawing, in dry erase marker, and then transferring those sheets to his Apple IIc to get the, shapes down and the right, motion in the characters as they move. And he literally drew this thing basically rotoscope style, frame by frame, and it occupies 48 floppy disks and plays back in DazzleDraw. So yeah, it's astonishing. It's hard to say enough amazing, nice things about this effort.
Yeah, this is wild. The DazzleDraw on a koala pad, and down in the making of write-up, it's talking about he had to use lay acetate over a 2C monitor so he could set up the guide for this thing. I mean, and hand draw each one of these frames. This is insane. You're nuts, dude.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. He wanted to have a layer system like Photoshop does on modern machines, which DazzleDraw doesn't have. So he sort of created layers with these acetates, and he kind of flips them around off the top of the monitor to sort of set up different shots and get his alignment guides and stuff. And yeah, the amount of labor in this is really remarkable, and the courage to, I think, start something like that in this day and age, because, spanning 48 floppy disks, I mean, odds are one of those is going to go bad at some point during this process, and you're going to lose some or all of your work. Now, did he use real floppy disks, or did he do this with emulated disks? I didn't.
Well, it does say that it I don't know if it's an addition to or this is like the result of, but it's 288 image files. It's okay. Here it is. Yeah. So for post-processing, he used Apple IIc Pro and a floppy disk emulator to copy all 288 image files onto his modern MacBook.
Okay.
So I assume this is all nicely backed up and we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So probably, okay, that's good. So yeah, he probably didn't use real floppy disks. They're 40 years old and decaying for the actual data saving of it. So that's good. And yeah, I like the shout out to IIc Pro in there as well. That was nice.
And one sector goes bad and the whole project is lost.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, of course, the playback is done, on a modern Mac. He brings all of the images into iMovie or something and strings them together. But nevertheless, yeah, amazing. I mean, there are so many... What I love about this is the the authenticity of the effort, because there are so many other ways to do this that would have looked exactly the same and would have been a lot easier. So like he could have just written some sort of Photoshop filter, that would make every frame look exactly like an Apple II would have rendered it. And we've seen things like that before, like what would this modern game look like on an Apple II or whatever? And people write video filters or whatever. But yeah, the fact that he did this the very hardest possible way, I really respect that. I don't know why. Gotta love that effort. All right, moving right along. Listener Jorma, who we've had on the show, in fact, has been one of the early recipients of Bulgarian mastermind Plamin's newest product, which is the Fast Chip 2E accelerator. And this thing has been quite the talk of the town over on the Apple II enthusiasts Facebook group. So this thing drives your Apple IIe to a little over 16 megahertz, which is pretty astonishing.
Yeah, I guess I can think of, like, off the top of my head, I don't know, like bubble sorts or VisiCalc stuff, like super complex computations, because if you're going to do that, of course you would use a 2E from 1983 or whatever. 16.6 megahertz is, I guess, what this thing tops out at. That makes it the fastest available Apple II accelerator. It's based on the 65C816 with a 512K of fast SRAM memory. There have been a number of accelerators for the Apple II series, and this is not counting the GS. This is the Apple II. There's something called the number 9. There's the Saturn Titan cards. There's the Speed Demon, and then Applied Engineering had the Transwarp and the short-lived Transwarp 2, as well as the Zip chips, the Rocket chips, a whole host of them out there. And unfortunately, a lot of those now have been really hard to get, and so they're very expensive on eBay. And this is going to, I think, retail at $150 US, which will undercut, I think, a lot of those high prices that you see. And it's presumably built on modern electronics, and so it's probably going to be a little bit more reliable than what you might get from a used seller.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, those the zip chips and stuff, they go for big money on eBay, many hundreds of dollars often. They're all, they're 40 years old, so who knows if they even work. A lot of times they aren't tested on eBay because sometimes people don't know what they are, or they don't have an Apple II anymore. They found it in the closet. They have no way to test it, whatever. So you're spending a lot of money to roll those dice. I think a product like this, if I wanted a really fast 8-bit, this would be a no-brainer for me for sure.
Yep, this will fit in any slot 1 through 7, and it doesn't even override the 80-column functionality of slot 3, so you can stick it right in there. Comes with a little external control panel so that you can see exactly how fast your Apple IIe is cruising along. And of course, Jorma has all of this written up over on his Fin Apple blog. It's an in-depth review, and even if you're not going to buy one of these, I'd suggest you read it because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd also like to point out that Jorma's URL is finapple.hoho.fi, which, makes sense because I imagine Santa Claus is from Finland.
Works for me.
It's actually HHO, but when I look at it, it looks like ho-ho to me.
I like to close my eyes and imagine.
Yes. All right. Well, with that insightful color commentary, let's move on.
Next up, we have Ewan Wanup's new software tool for the 2GS. He's, of course, been releasing all kinds of NDAs and CDAs and just generally awesome stuff for the 2GS for quite some time now. And his latest thing is what he calls the new FTP toolset and sauce.ftp NDA. Basically, what this is it allows you to build your own FTP client, or you can add FTP client functionality right into whatever 2GS application you're building. You just drop this tool set into your system tools folder and add some commands to your applications, and boom, you're done. He's also releasing this NDA, sauce.ftp, which utilizes the tool set. And from the 2GS desktop, or while you're running an application, you can just send a single file or whatever to the host server using the FTP protocols. So this is all available at his specky.uk website, and we'll have links in the show notes.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I've been following this on the Apple II beta mailing list, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, that's a mailing list for people developing new products on the Apple II to share builds and get people to test them and that sort of thing. And yeah, this FTP thing, it's fantastic, especially I love the NDA. I mean, it's a full-blown FTP client and an NDA on your 2GS, so you can just send files back and forth through FTP, which, yeah, if you're a serious 2GS developer, that would be a really, really useful thing for cross-development. All right, so next up, the Apple II Pi card is getting an update. This one's been a while in the making. I know that a lot of people have been wanting to get Apple II Pi cards, and they haven't been available for a while.
Yeah, so what I'm reading over here from the announcement on Comsys Apple II, the news group is David Schmeck has posted the release 2.2 of the Apple II Pi based on the Raspbian Jessie image. So if you have one of these cards, you can bring your system up to date. Let's see, there's a link. We'll have links to there's the SD card image that you can use. All full-size models of the Raspberry Pi are supported from the Pi 1 Model B, Pi 2 version 1.1, 1.2, and to the Pi 3. The Model 0, he says, should be compatible, but has not been tested yet. And if you follow the thread in Comsys Apple II, there's further talk about the hardware card itself, and that the new version, I guess, Anthony over at Ultimate Apple II is hard at work building as many of these things as he can to sell them. Those are not quite available yet, but the software is there. So I imagine it's not going to be long before you'll be able to purchase those as well.
Cool. Yeah, I actually misspoke there at the beginning when I was talking about it. This isn't a new version of the card. It's just a new version of the software that runs on the Raspberry Pi that you put on the card in your Apple II.
Right.
Yeah, for anyone who's not go ahead.
Go ahead. You'll be able to get the card soon. What were you going to say?
So for anyone who isn't familiar with this product, yeah, it lets you stick a Raspberry Pi on an Apple II expansion card, and then you stick that card in your Apple II, and it allows you to kind of use the Raspberry Pi to do some heavy lifting for your Apple II. So you can log into the Raspberry Pi, and use the Apple II as a terminal, and you can then run software on the Raspberry Pi that way and move data back and forth. So it kind of unlocks a lot of neat things. It's a convenient way to get your Apple II on the internet and do other similar things because the Raspberry Pi is doing all the hard stuff for it. In fact, there was an especially good stunt shown at KFest one year I believe by Peter Neubauer, who we just spoke to, where he ran GS port on the Raspberry Pi in an Apple II Pi card. So he was emulating a 2GS on an Apple II 8-bit, which was pretty fantastic. Okay, so next up we've got a palm-sized Apple II. Now, I think we talked about this a couple of months ago, did we not?
Oh, did we?
Yeah, I think this is an update to it, though. So I think maybe last month, maybe a couple months ago, a fellow had made an Apple IIe emulator that runs on the chip computer, which is one of these kind of small hobbyist single-board computers. And it had its own little monitor and everything, and he put it in, I believe, one of Charles Mangan's 3D printed Apple II enclosures, made a little teeny working Apple II. And so that's now been updated to the Apple IIe. So if you want a little tiny working Apple IIe, you now have a way to do that.
Pretty soon we'll have an entire line of little teeny tiny Apple II computers that you can get.
That's right. They are pretty adorable. Of course, the keyboards don't work, but aside from that, they're pretty adorable.
Boo!
All right. Well, we all love BBSs. Looks like we got a new one here, Mike. I hadn't heard about this. What's the story?
Yeah, so this is another, I shouldn't say another. I don't know if there are any others running right now. This is an Apple II BBS that's running on real hardware that you can telnet to. It's I don't know what his name is because the post over at Comsys Apple II just has the Gmail email address. But it's called A80's Apple II BBS. There are instructions over in that thread, and I'm sure there's a web page that I didn't find where you can get your login information and things like that. I think it's neat that you can telnet to it, but it's not just running on, Synchro or something like that on a Windows machine emulating an Apple II. I think that's pretty cool. And I think that they've been, whoever's been doing this has been like putting videos up of the software running on it over on YouTube. I'll have to find the link for that. But
that's very cool. Yeah. There's certainly lots of retro BBSs out there. It's rare to find ones running on real hardware, I think. So especially on Apple II hardware, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's got a hard drive for it, like a CIDR, or if he's running on a CFFA, like a 32 meg ProDOS image or something like that.
He's running on a really old Apple profile hard drive, one of those that takes forever to run and just crashes like crazy.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I don't know. I would assume that maybe that would be something you would want running on like a CFFA, but
yeah,
maybe not.
Yeah, the weak link in a BBS nowadays would definitely be the floppy drives. I mean, they were never really built for that amount of continuous use at the time. And nowadays, they're all 40 years old, and the floppies are not getting any younger either. So, I imagine it's probably running on some kind of emulation.
Here it is. So it's not a web page that he's got. It's a Twitter feed, and like he's showing there's videos and screenshots of all the hardware that he's got installed, and it's like I think the most recent one was from today where he installed a Time Master 2 HO, so now there will be accurate time kept on the BBS, that sort of thing.
Cool. Okay, so he's doing a lot with vintage hardware if he's using a Time Master instead of a modern replacement like from Reactive Micro.
Yeah, and I believe it's running on some version of the GBBS Pro software that recently went not open source but freely available.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's great. I love it when people have screenshots of the hardware running on BBS, the hardware that the BBS is running on. I think that's fantastic. I think we talked about this a few months ago, but Jason Scott, somewhere on archive.org, has a collection of BBS hardware setups. I think from his documentary, the BBS documentary, showing people's actual bedrooms covered in hardware with drives with no enclosure and pilfered everything from everywhere and wires hanging all over the place. Just the crazy setups people had running these BBSs.
Frankenstein computers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, we've been talking a lot about KansasFest this month, but of course, it's not the only big Apple II convention running imminently. WozFest Slot 7 has been announced. As is their tradition, they are coming up with funny names involving the numbers. And so this year is number 7, so it's Slot 7. I believe the full name is WozFest Slot 7 : Your Card, which will give 2GS users out there a chortle. And so it's scheduled for the 22nd of July, 2017, around midday Sydney time. And they are going to attempt, as usual, a video hookup with KansasFest in Missouri because they do overlap. I think, as is tradition, that will fail horribly because Skype around the world, not exactly reliable, but they will attempt it at 1400 local time, which is 2300 Friday, Kansas City time. So 11 p.m. In Kansas City if you're going to be at K-Fest on Friday.
This will be one of those rare late night sessions that Peter was talking about.
Yeah, that's another one actually that I want to see. I always miss the attempt to do this every year, so I will enjoy seeing that. And of course, we do actually get at least one Australian lately every year. Friend of the show, Michael Marn, who also co-hosts the Retrocomputing Roundtable. He makes the epic trip around the Blue Marble every year to attend in person, and I think we're going to get some other Aussies this year as well. I've heard rumors. I'm not going to name any names in case they can't make it. I don't want them to feel bad. But all right, moving right along. Tell me who Kelvin Sherlock is, Mike, and what he's got going here.
So Kelvin Sherlock is an Apple II, I think mostly GS developer. We've had him on the show before. He may be most famous, well, I don't know, most famous, but one of his popular project is the G-Shizen Shizaisen, whatever. I've heard it pronounced so many ways. It's a very popular game for the Apple IIgs. He's also written Silver Platter, PNG Floyd, ShrinkFit X, and Profuse for Mac OS X, and an iShizen version for a version for iOS. And he has now released in what's the word that the Hollywood types use in association with Juice.gs. He has released what he is calling the Golden Gate compatibility layer, and what this does is it allows you to run Orca and the Genome shell as if they were native on modern OSs, whether you're on Windows or Mac OS. That's available for you now, and it costs you a cheap $10.
Yeah, very cool. All right. All right, so we've talked in the past a fair bit about the Apple II clones. I think we practically did a whole show on them at one point, just all of the crazy ones that are out there. The Apple II was so easy to clone. Both the strength and weakness of it was that it was entirely off-the-shelf parts. So 10 minutes with a ROM dumper, and you too can clone an Apple II. And but here's a corner of the world that we don't often hear about from this time period in computing, and that's the mainland People's Republic of China. So we've got a great blog post here by someone who managed to get their hands on a CEC1, which is a very rare Apple II clone from China from that period. And it is pretty great looking. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of maybe like a ZX Spectrum, but with a real keyboard. And it's got this really crazy D-pad looking keyboard arrow key thing on the side of it. Comes in crazy colors, red, of course, for good luck in China, and also beige, so that you look like a professional in America in 1980 something. And so this person has found one of these with the box, which is great. They've dismantled it and taken pictures of all the chips and everything, so you can kind of see all the guts of it. Really, really great pictures. So definitely worth a look.
Yeah, this again is Jorma's blog, and I like the write-ups that he's done. It looks like he's kind of gone out of his way to try and find as much information about this as possible, including running pages through Google Translate for sometimes hilarious results. But basically what this was according to one result that he got, it's a learning machine organized by the Ministry of Electronics Industry Computer and Information Bureau, Tsinghua University, presided over the joint design, the Electronics Division 6 state-owned 734 plant, Shanxi Province Computer Factory, and Huaming Computer Company Limited to participate in the development of a smart type computer, period. The CEC1 or CECI, I'm not sure. Chinese learning machine is compatible with the Apple IIe and has the same functionality. And he's got some shots of the documentation that came along with it. I love that one of these is like a couple of obvious schoolgirls using this thing. Oh, I think that might actually be an Apple II, but they've removed the Apple II plate, the nameplate.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that. I wondered what the deal was with that. Yeah, the picture on the front of the manual is not the computer. It appears to be a real Apple II, but as you say, with the nameplate removed.
Well, we didn't want Apple's lawyers coming to knock on their doors, I guess.
It's just strange they wouldn't use a photo of their own computer on the front of the manual.
So there's also one called the CEC-E, which is just made in beige. I don't know what the difference between the I and the E are, but again...
Not as lucky.
That's right, yes. Jorma has a great write-up and some really interesting stuff there, so you should check out that blog post.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't actually make the connection that this was Jorma's blog again. So apparently he himself has acquired one of these, which is pretty great. Yes. Gosh,
did it.
I wonder where people find some of these really rare things. We talked recently about the Tiger learning computer that got written up on, was it Blake Patterson who found one of those?
I think so.
Yeah, and it's another really rare Apple II artifact that I love to see.
So it looks like this is going to be a 2-part post, and he'll be booting it up in part 2. That has not been written yet. It is a shame that he did have to throw away the box, the original computer box, but it looks like it was pretty moldy, and you just don't want the health problems associated with that.
Yeah, 20-year-old foreign mold. I don't know. could be anything. Not that there's anything different about foreign mold, I guess, but I don't know. All right, moving right along. So this is pretty great, Mike. You snuck this one in on me also. Microsoft ports Lemonade Stand to Windows and Mac OS. Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, so the write-up that I found was actually on a Microsoft Central on MSFT blog site, and they have sort of an overview of what this is and where you can download the files. But the original post is actually over on the official Microsoft MSDN blog, and it's real short because it's Lemonade Stand. There's not much to it, but the write-up, this was done by Microsoft employee Raymond Chen, who I guess was really bored one day. When he was younger, he played Lemonade Stand and figured out that this wouldn't be too difficult to port to a modern platform. And I mean, I don't know what you're really getting by doing this instead of emulation, other than just the coolness factor. But you can download all this stuff plus the original code now from their website.
Yeah, pretty amusing. All right, I don't think I even actually knew that was a Microsoft product, to be honest.
I don't, was it? I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe. I just assumed someone at Apple wrote it, I guess, in their spare time or something, because it was just on every disk.
Yeah, I don't, well, I mean, Microsoft had a lot of early code in both the hardware and Apple II products that they released. So I guess it would make sense that this could be somebody who knows a lot better than us will write into us and yell at us, and we'll let you know.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, to me, Lemonade Stand was just like hydrogen. Like no one knows where it comes from, but it's everywhere, and it's just always been. All right, that was a weird analogy, but
yeah.
All right, well, let's just get past that as quickly as possible and move on to
pretend it never happened.
Yes, some. If you're one of those people who likes to see how other people live, who live better than you ever will, I guess I'm not one of those people. Wow. But Apple employee number 3, Mike Markkula, it's a mouthful, is selling his ranch for a mere $45 million, and it's 3,000 acres, something like that. It's in Carmel, includes such things as staff residences and a 3,000-foot private airstrip. So, 14,000 acres, my mistake. Room enough for 450 cattle, which is pretty great because I've been wondering where to put my 450 cattle. So maybe I should look into this. Of course, the house is beautiful, but yes, it is. They clearly spared no expense. Apparently, he went into early retirement at age 32 after making millions on his Apple stock, and the fruits of that labor, in scare quotes, went into this ranch.
Yeah, I don't know how retired he actually was, because I know that Markkula was involved with Apple, I think, pretty much all the way up until Jobs' triumphant return in '97. I know he was at the very least on the board at that point. And then when Jobs came back, it was kind of it's time for you to go. And then he resigned from the board at that point. But yeah, this is what happens when you're employee number 3 and you worked before that at Intel, and you. Then you retired from Intel in his, I think, early 20s or something, and then became I guess what we would call now an angel investor. So,
yeah, it's a tough job, I guess, but somebody has to do it.
That's right.
I do like this quote here that the New York Times described Markkula as providing adult supervision to the 2 founders.
Yeah, that's true. I think he was a little bit older and kind of had to rein in some of the more wild instincts that they had.
Yes. All right. Well, speaking of ridiculous amounts of cash, there's another Apple I that has gone up for auction, and this one for a mere $335,000. How disappointing!
Yeah, that was the final price. I think we mentioned this a couple of episodes back, and yep, we knew that the market was cratering, and people are unloading these things, and so I guess buy low, sell high. Now's the time to grab 5 or 6 if you got a couple of extra bucks in your couch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you should really be stocking up on Apple Ones, I think, at this point.
Yep. Yeah. This Apple One was originally acquired by Frank Van Gilly III and sold to Andrew Zacharias for $300 on in May of 1778, May of 1978. So even then, it was he purchased it at a significant discount from the original $666.
All right. Well, I hope someone's very happy with that Apple One.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't say who actually bought this.
I'm actually going to jump ahead in our notes here because we got another Apple One item. Somebody has tracked down the apartment where Woz built the first Apple One.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a neat story. There's maps here and pictures of what it looks like today. It was originally called the Villa Serra Apartments and is now the Markham Apartments. This person tracked it down.
Yeah, I don't see a name immediately. So John Calende has he's a software engineer, and he has spent a significant amount of time talking to Woz and Randy Wigginton and a few other Apple employees. And it looks like this blog it's apple1computer.blogspot.com, and everything there is focused on that particular model. But he tracked down, got a hold of Woz, and Woz, his memory is a little bit hazy, and I don't know if they have the actual apartment number, like 100%. This is it, but they're pretty sure that they've got it, and it's kind of cool that somebody would spend their time to go and do this.
Yeah,
especially because everybody knows the garage, and then when Woz corrected that, it's still sort of interesting to remember that there were a lot of steps to getting to that mythical garage.
Yeah. I always just assumed this was done in the garage as well. But that story, like so many others, is largely apocryphal, as we've talked about on the show.
Yep. This is when Woz was still working at HP, and I guess he was doing the major design work kind of at night at HP after his regular job ended at 5 or whatever in his cubicle, and then he would come home and build this thing. So pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool indeed. All right, so we'll wrap up the news segment here with a little more KFest stuff. There's going to be some special offers at KFest this year, it looks like.
Yeah, this is one thing we didn't really touch on too much with Peter, but if you're coming and you want to buy some Apple II gear, bring a little cash with you. Chris Torrance will have copies of his assembly lines, the complete book that he did with Roger Wagner for the special price of $15. Charles Mangan will be there with some new items from Retro Connector, and he'll be selling David Finnegan's new version of the new Apple II user guide direct from the author. Steve Wyrick will be there, and he'll be selling signed copies of his Sophistication and Simplicity, the History of the Apple II, for $20. Call Apple will be there, and they'll have their new books that we mentioned, and I'm sure probably some of their other products as well. It looks like they've got the GBBS Pro 2.2, a professionally produced and significantly updated physical manual and software update. And of course, Henry Corbis of Reactive Micro and partner of Anthony over at Ultimate Apple II. They'll be selling the RamWorks 3 kit for $60, which is $5 off. And their popular Universal PSU kit, the power supply thing that you can buy, and you just snap off the pieces that you don't need, solder it together, and boom, you've got a new power supply for whatever Apple II or 3 that you have.
All right, you got it in. Actually, I'll just throw in that I'm probably also going to be selling my ROM again this year, my Apple IIc Plus ROM, which defaults the accelerator to off while still giving you the option to turn it on, and corrects the beep sound to sound more like the OG Apple II beep. Or
breaks it, depending on who you are.
Yeah. I developed this as part of my sort of yearly project for KFest last year, and I sold them at the vendor table towards the end of the show, and I have a few left over, so I will be bringing those. And I don't have many, but I will be selling what I have. So come on out.
I will throw my money at you.
All right, well, that's it for the news. We've got a little bit of woos, Mike's favorite segment, so let's roll on into that.
We like was, and we know you do too. It's was news. It's woos.
So a little article on over on 9to5mac.com. They love to talk to Woz and speak to him. They did once again. This time he's talking about Apple's ability to innovate as they continue to get larger. And Woz is of the opinion that Apple is too big now to be innovative, and that whatever the next big thing is, it will not come from them. So, that's probably fair. I mean, the big monster companies are not usually the ones that do the crazy innovative things. I think that's always been true. So you look at what might be the next big thing right now, things like virtual reality and, augmented reality, and it's mostly small, scrappy startups doing that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah. And, you can argue until you're blue in the face about what is really innovation, and who created the iPhone, typically it's common. I mean, it's common to refer to Steve Jobs as the creator of the iPhone, but he's not the one that sat down and coded it. He didn't build the hardware. So, these are teams of people, and the ideas typically have come from other people and software products and companies that Apple has purchased in the past. I don't know that Apple, I don't know, and I'm sure I'll get yelled at for this, but it's always been my opinion that Apple doesn't really do things first. They do things better. Mm-hmm. The iPhone was a way better cell phone, but the cell phone had been around for ages and ages. And, the GUI that came on the first Mac, that was something that they got from Xerox, but Xerox didn't know what it was, and it was kind of clunky and didn't know how to sell it. So, I would say that this is probably true, but I wouldn't think that Apple is going anywhere or is going to be what, a company that is thought of as behind the times or anything.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis, that's always been the case. I mean, even the Apple II, it was hardly the first home computer, but, what was distinct about it was that it was the first one that was, that you could just buy it and plug it in and use it. And it did things the way that people wanted them done. And so that's sort of the advantage of being the second mover, as they say in the business world, that, you let the other people make all the mistakes and then find out what the market actually wants and swoop in and do that. So yeah, Apple has certainly typically been that company that does that.
Having said that, it would be nice, I guess, if I don't know, lately it feels like it's just been a stream of iterations of thinner, faster iPhones and iPads and MacBooks and iMacs, and that's about it. But I'm not worried at all. Have you? I know you get to San Francisco every now and then. Have you seen the new campus yet?
No, I have.
Spaceship?
Yeah, I've looked at it on Google Maps. It's pretty astonishing how big it is.
Yeah.
And just sort of random connection to that. A friend of mine has a logistics company, logistics and construction, and they got the contract to install the sliding glass doors on that structure that lead out into the park courtyard area. And so these doors are they're 5 stories high and made of curved glass. There's something like 60 feet wide and 5 stories high.
Oh my God.
They're just incredibly enormous. So his company had the job of transporting and hanging these doors, and it was quite an operation. So they are sparing no expense on that structure. That's for sure.
Maybe Apple's new innovation is architecture.
Yeah. Apparently, the new building has a 100,000 square foot gym in it. So if you want to work out, they have room for you.
Yeah. What, you want to work out and not have to fight over the elliptical? That's the place to go.
That's right. Yes. The article that I got that statistic from was titled "Apple's new campus has 100,000 square foot gymnasium and no daycare." So I'm just throwing that out there. Make of that information what you will.
Priorities.
Yeah. All right. That's all the woos we have as usual, and I've got a little bit of feedback. Why don't we talk about that?
Sounds good to me.
You've listened to us talk. Now it's time to tell us what you think.
All right, we just got a couple of emails this time around. We got one from listener Jerry, who says, in response to the Soft Talk segment and the topic of barcode readers and numeric keypads, I thought I'd chime in. This is in response to me saying somewhat snidely who was buying those things in response to numeric keypads and barcode scanners that were constantly being advertised. So Jerry goes on, over the years, I've seen a number of Apple II, TRS-80, and C64 machines used as point-of-sale devices. While I doubt the manufacturers of barcode readers or numeric keypads sold tons of them, I'm sure the business folks that used their micros in their stores were primary customers. A niche business to be sure, but as I listened to you go through the old ads, most of those ads were also from niche businesses. So yeah, I'm really glad that you wrote in to tell us about that, Jerry, because that never occurred to me that, yeah, a lot of people would use an 8-bit computer as a point-of-sale solution. It would be a really inexpensive way to do that. For anyone not familiar with retail, that's basically a cash register that also, in the case of computers, tracks your inventory and things like that. So, it automatically keeps track of how much, of each product you have in your store and so on. So, of course, yeah, that makes perfect sense. A numeric keypad and a barcode scanner would be just the ticket for that type of application. So, yeah, thanks for enlightening us on that one. Oh, Jerry finishes to say, I can also remember seeing what looked like Apple II text mode monitors in A&W and Dairy Queen fast food outlets that tracked how long it took orders to be filled. So that's a great observation. Yeah, I can definitely believe that Apple IIs were involved in those types of behind-the-counter types of systems in fast food restaurants or other places that were early adopters of automation and computing.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of those an application like that. But then every time I see one of those articles that that they do these days, where it's like here's old computers still in use, and whether it's business accounting software or running lab equipment or some assembly line, I'm always surprised. Like, oh, that's something I'd never even thought of that it would be used for. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. It's really great.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. The last email I have here is from listener Justin, who says, Hey, Quinn and Mike, I'm loving this podcast and I'm a huge Apple II fan. In fact, my first computer was an enhanced Apple IIe back in 1992. Wow, that's quite late, actually, for adopting the Apple II. So yeah, good on you, Justin. I'm curious to learn about mouse text and mouse graphics and how developers created the Mac-like GUI desktops in text and graphics modes for the 128K Apple IIe used in programs like Mouse Paint, Publish It, and so on. I know Apple had mouse text and mouse graphics Apple II desktop toolkits for developers that are now sold on Syndicom. But how did those toolkits all work? I'm hoping you can do an episode focused on mouse text and mouse graphics and the Mac-like GUIs for the Apple IIe. Thanks and keep up the good work. Well, Justin, you've come to the right place because we actually have quite a lot of interest in that here as well. In fact, the granddaddy of GUIs for the 8-bits was, of course, GEOS, which Mike and I are both fans of, and we did an entire episode on that. So you'll definitely want to go back and listen to that. And we've talked about Mouse Paint a fair bit as well on the show, both in the context of some of the tech segments that I've done on the mouse, and of course when we interviewed Bill Budge, the author of Mouse Paint. And, of course, on the text-based side of things, mouse text is something I'm a big fan of, and I wrote a library for working with that called WeGUI, which I presented at KFest a couple of years ago. And I'll link to that in the show notes because, any excuse to link to my own crap, I will take. And hey, it's half my show. If you want to link to your own crap, go make your own podcast. That's awesome. So yeah, I will link to that as well. It lets you do those types of GUI interfaces in AppleSoft Basic or in assembly language. Now so mouse text, of course, we know what that is. He talks about something called mouse graphics, and I don't know exactly what he means by that. I don't know if there was a library by that name or if you're familiar with that one, Mike.
That's not one that is immediately jumping to mind.
Okay. So I know the GUIs in most Apple II 8-bit programs were, just made by hand, one-offs, like Mouse Paint was done that way, and probably Publish It. And the other, I know that Multiscribe was the same way. It was just a one-off thing written by that company. So, everybody was just looking at the Mac and being like, okay, we can do that, and just, trying to figure out how to write it themselves on the Apple II. So I don't know if there were actual GUI libraries per se for the graphics side of things, but certainly mouse text was also used really heavily in file launchers and, little utilities like Copy2 Plus and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking about his 1992. I think that was the year before the 2E was finally like the 2 line, other than the 2GS was, or maybe the 2GS. No, when was the 2GS discontinued?
Yeah, I think the 2GS was discontinued first, if I'm not mistaken, and I think the 2E was definitely 93 when they shut it down, and I think the 2GS actually was a little sooner.
So that would have been like the year before it was discontinued. And I believe at that point you could pick up like a brand new Apple IIe for, maybe $200. I mean, it was more if you paid for the monitor and stuff like that, but they were going for pretty cheap at that point. So that would make sense actually that, if somebody wanted a cheap entry level computer that, had a great software base and this thing runs and it's solid and there's plenty of information out there about it, that you would go for something like that if you didn't want, whatever 486 or whatever it was new and expensive at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, at that point, the platform was so mature that, the software was really great. I mean, you could get hard drives by then, and you could get great things like GeoS, and of course, all the games were there, and the hardware was cheap, and floppy disks were cheap. So yeah, why not?
Sure.
All right. Well, that's all the feedback I have. Did you have any, Mike?
I did have a couple of items. These were posted as comments to, when we post Open Apple on the website, you can come over and comment on the write-up, the article that Quinn puts together about the show. And Cucumber wrote in on our last one, and I think this is a little bit vague. It says, perhaps Michael should have asked, Asimov has a 20K single file version of the final release for running in ProDOS. This is our episode where we had Michael Packard talking about Alien Downpour. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really sure what Cucumber was referring to. Maybe, do you remember?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that either. Maybe he's saying that the disk image for Alien Downpour is available on Asimov. I'm not sure.
I know we talked a little bit about copy protection and things like that. So, Cucumber, let us know what that was about, because you're endlessly interesting to me.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think that's all I have for this month. And I think we're going to go ahead and push back Soft Talk one more month. It's summer and KansasFest is coming and everybody's kind of focused on that. And I think that typically our Soft Talks add like an hour or so to the show. And we're already about 90 minutes of record time. So, but that is still coming. We haven't given up on that. Probably pick that up again, in August after KansasFest. And man, I'm just so excited. I can't wait to see everybody there.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, next month will most likely be the super mega, whatever we call it, chicken missile podcast where we get all the retro podcasters together and record a live show at KansasFest, which is always just a huge amount of fun. It's one of my favorite things we do every year. So watch for that in our feed as well. And hopefully we will see many of you at KansasFest. And if not, then tune in August.
Yeah, and Quinn, I will see you in 19 days or so.
Yeah, for sure. Bye, everybody.
This has been the Open Apple Podcast. Subscribe to us in iTunes or visit us at open-apple.net, where you can browse our extensive catalogue of past episodes or read our blog. If you like what you've heard today, or even if you didn't, your comments, questions or ideas are always welcome. Send them to feedback@open-apple.net.